I think that these are proposals New Yorkers deserve to vote on. These are proposals that I take very seriously.
Can't allow one council person a veto on a project.
So you're supporting passage of these charter?
Yeah, otherwise you'll get nothing done.
If you want to preserve your residential neighborhoods and everything that we've grown up with, zoning, community boards, the power that an individual council person should continue to have, vote for Curtis Lewa.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We just heard from the three mayoral candidates throughout the course of the week about their perspectives on some of the ballot proposals that New Yorkers will decide in the upcoming election. That includes several measures that would change how our city approves new housing projects, and one measure that deals with modernizing the city's maps. A new campaign called Yes on Affordable Housing is seeking to educate city voters about these four proposals and get them passed in November. Joining me now to talk more about all of it is Amit Singh Bagga. He is the manager of the campaign and a Democratic strategist. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Great to be here.
So let's dispense with the easy one, right? Question 5, I think, is the one that modernizing the map. That should have been done a long time ago, just digitizing a lot of these paper maps.
That's exactly right. There are 8,000 paper maps that currently govern what the entire city looks like. Proposal 5 would just enable us to take those 8,000 and make them one, which makes everyone's lives a whole lot easier.
Okay, I don't know if anybody's going to vote against it, but that's that. Now, the other 3 are where it gets a little bit sticky. And generally what they do is, from my point of view, remove power currently in the hands of the council and place it elsewhere, taking away what had been effectively veto power that individual council members had over particular zoning, siting, and land use decisions. Is that a fair summary?
I think that might be overstating it a slight bit. Proposals 2 and 3, really what they do is that they fast track smaller development and more affordable development all across the city. We are facing a unprecedented historic housing crisis, right? Whether you're a renter in Crown Heights or whether you're a homeowner in Cambria Heights, everybody knows that people can't afford the roofs over their heads. 50% of New Yorkers are drowning in their housing costs. That includes renters and homeowners. And we have just a 1.4% vacancy rate, which means just 1 out of every 100 housing units are actually available for rent. The housing crisis is clearly what propelled an unprecedented number of New Yorkers to the polls back in June. And so we know that addressing this crisis, it means putting a house out that's currently on fire, dousing it out. To proposal number 2, it would do a couple of simple things. If a 100% affordable housing project is proposed, it would fast track the approvals while maintaining community board input from 8 months to 90 days. It would also, for projects that are proposed in the 12 community districts that have produced the least amount of housing in the last 5 years, that are at least 25% affordable or more, also fast track those projects review while also maintaining community board input. So again, from 8 months to 90 days. And that's really important because when you look at how long it takes to build housing in New York City, you really start to understand why we have a crisis. In New York, from idea to shovel in the ground is an average of 900 days. That's just about 200 in Boston, and it's about 400 in Los Angeles. So we know we need the tools to solve this crisis, and that's really what proposals 2 and 3 are all about.
Okay, so now tell me about proposal 4, because this is where the big shift comes, and this is where the council members have been squawking, right?
Well, look, proposal 4 actually takes no power away from the city council at all. If you are a city council member that wants to negotiate in good faith the very best deal that you can get for your constituents, whether that's investments in parks or schools or all sorts of other community benefits, you will continue to have that power. And in a way, in creating an appeals board, which by the way consists of duly elected officials, what you're doing is actually saying only in instances where small-mindedness is weaponizing the current process to block affordable housing, only in those instances could this appeals board take a look at only the housing components of a project that is potentially killed by the council, and return it back to what the City Planning Commission has already approved in terms of housing, both in terms of units and affordability. And if the council approves the project, it never has to go to the appeals board. So in a way, the council can actually use the appeals board as a boogeyman to say, I'm the council member, negotiate the best deal you can with me, and let's get this done.
So if we take a step back, the way the process currently works, as you said, it can end up taking more than 2 years to get even a pretty simple project done. We also have what's called member deference, meaning the local council member is essentially deferred to by the rest of the council, and that ends up raising the cost and in some cases killing different projects. The politics of changing it, though, I wanted to read something from you. This is Adrienne Adams, the Speaker of the City Council, and this is a public letter she issued. It says, in part, Mayor Adams' ballot questions 2, 3, and 4 attempt to mislead voters by hiding their real impact of eliminating the public's power over land use decisions that allow new development. This major change to remove the only democratically elected entity with voting power in the land use process undermines New Yorkers' ability to secure more affordable housing and investments for their neighborhoods. What's your answer to that?
Well, first of all, I want to be very clear. Speaker Adams deserves tremendous credit for shepherding City of Yes through a very difficult process in the council. This is generational zoning change. It was long overdue. And the fact that Speaker Adams was able to get it done is truly remarkable. That's the type of leadership we have not seen in the city council generation after generation, which is partially what's gotten us to this housing crisis in the first place. And what these measures are really designed to do is really deal with that issue. You know, we may have a great speaker in Adrienne Adams who's shown great leadership. However, we've had multiple iterations of the council over decades that have completely failed to act on housing, in no small part because we have this system where the most small-minded voices can weaponize the system to block this housing that we so desperately need. The lack of housing, both market rate and affordable, is a citywide problem and it demands a citywide solution. And so we are now going to equip city government with these long overdue and necessary tools to make sure that we're building housing everywhere. Just to give you an example, there are 3 community districts across the Bronx and Brooklyn that each produced more than 7,000 units of housing between 2010 and 2023. Meanwhile, there's a community district in Queens that's produced 100 times less than that over that same period of time. So we really need to be able to build more housing in every part of the city. And if the system that we currently have isn't working, we need to change it. And we have to have the focus and courage to do that.
Let me ask you to put on your Democratic strategist hat, and I'll ask you a couple of questions before I let you go. One is, you and I could name several, maybe half a dozen local officials who lost their jobs, were voted out because they were not sufficiently opposed, that they did not slow down development projects. I'm thinking of, Marjorie Velasquez, I'm thinking of Liz Crowley, I'm thinking of Marge Markey out in Queens. How do we sort of change the political incentives so that saying yes will actually get you votes?
Well, look, part of what the challenge has been with the current system is that so many council members are afraid to actually say yes to housing projects because they fear the consequences at the ballot box. And if you think about that, what that means is that the political system has asphyxiated our ability to deliver on this central promise that New York has been all about since our inception, which is that we are a beacon for working people coming from all over the country and all over the world to create better lives for themselves and their families. We have been the center of opportunity for, at this point, hundreds of millions of people over the time of history. And we are going to seriously imperil our demographic and our economic futures unless we are able to house every single New Yorker affordably.
Okay, I can't let you get out of here without asking you about the South Asian vote. You're sort of a specialist in that, and you've informed us and educated us quite a bit. What is happening with that as we go into the general election phase? Has the Mamdani campaign in particular been finding and signing up new people? What do you expect to see happen?
Well, look, just to let it out for your viewers to make it clear, in 1970 when my parents came to New York City, there were about 10,000 South Asians in New York City. That is South Asians from every part of the subcontinent. Today we are actually over 500,000. That is massive amounts of growth. The South Asian community is leading demographic and population change. Bangladeshis and Nepalis have been the fastest growing demographic groups in New York since the year 2010. And South Asians are finally, after long last, saying we deserve a voice in New York politics. We deserve, our needs deserve to be addressed. We're an incredibly diverse group, but we have the same types of housing needs, economic needs, educational needs, job training needs that other communities do. And it's really important that we're at the table to have a candidate that for the first time has not only represented South Asians in this way, but made sure that the apparatus of the operation is really reaching people where they are, being really linguistically and culturally responsive. I will never forget the story about the non-citizen, monolingual Bangla-speaking taxi driver in Western Queens who was organizing his neighbors to vote for Zoran. That is a type of power that you can't replicate without really having an impact. And so I think South Asians in New York have a bright future.
Okay, we'll see how this all plays out in the last few weeks. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you.
Thank you so much.